The ground beneath the town didn't shake. It breathed.
Hey, follow my YouTube channel and receive new upcoming videos from
The first scream came from the orchard, and because it was autumn, no one heard it properly. Wind was already in the branches, dragging dry leaves against one another with the sound of paper bones. The town of Alder Row had learned to ignore noises that did not belong to people. Every year the trees rehearsed dying. Every year the crows argued over inheritance. The air itself sounded like it was splitting open, so the scream slid into the evening unnoticed, just another thing the season was taking over. Mara heard it anyway. She was walking home from the library, cutting through the orchard because it was faster and because she liked the smell of bruised apples fermenting in the grass. It smelled like sweetness learning how to rot. She told herself she liked it. The scream didn't sound human at first. It sounded like a deer choking. Then it bent upward at the end into a shape only a throat could make. She stopped. The orchard stretched in uneven rows toward the hill. The trees gnarled and blackened in the sunset. Something moved between them. Not a person walking, but the absence of walking. The way fog sometimes passes across a street without touching it. Mr. Hale, she called, because the orchard belonged to him, and because names made things behave. No answer. The wind paused. The apples hanging from the branches began to sway without the trees moving. Mara felt that particular wrongness children feel before adults teach them to ignore it. The certainty that the world had leaned an inch sideways. She took a step backward. Something ran past her behind the trees. Not toward her. Not away. Just across. She never saw it. What she saw was the apples. Every fruit on the nearest tree turned at once, as if watching it go by. Then the smell changed. The sweetness vanished. In its place came a scent like cold coins and damp soil pulled from deep underground. Mara ran. She didn't remember deciding to. One moment, she was frozen. The next, she was.
The first scream came from the orchard, and because it was autumn, no one heard it properly. Wind was already in the branches, dragging dry leaves against one another with the sound of paper bones. The town of Alder Row had learned to ignore noises that did not belong to people. Every year the trees rehearsed dying. Every year the crows argued over inheritance. The air itself sounded like it was splitting open. So the scream slid into the evening unnoticed, just another thing the season was taking apart. Mara heard it anyway. She was walking home from the library, cutting through the orchard because it was faster and because she liked the smell of bruised apples fermenting in the grass. It smelled like sweetness learning how to rot. She told herself she liked it. The scream didn't sound human at first. It sounded like a deer choking. Then it bent upward at the end into a shape only a throat could make. She stopped. The orchard stretched in uneven rows toward the hill, the trees gnarled and blackening in the sunset. Something moved between them, not a person walking, but the absence of walking. The way fog sometimes passes across a street without touching it. Mr. Hale, she called, because the orchard belonged to him, and because names made things behave. No answer. The wind paused. The apples hanging from the branches began to sway without the trees moving. Mara felt that particular wrongness children feel before adults teach them to ignore it, the certainty that the world had leaned an inch sideways. She took a step backward. Something ran past her behind the trees. Not toward her. Not away. Just across. She never saw it. What she saw was the apples. Every fruit on the nearest tree turned at once, as if watching it go by. Then the smell changed. The sweetness vanished. In its place came a scent like cold coins and damp soil pulled from deep underground. Mara ran. She didn't remember deciding to. One moment she was frozen, the next she was sprinting across the grass, branches whipping her coat, breath tearing her chest. She reached the road and didn't stop until the town lights swallowed her. She told herself she'd imagined it. She told herself until morning. Because in the morning, they found Mr. Hale in the orchard. He wasn't dead the way people usually were. There was no blood, no wound, no violence. He lay on his back beneath the trees with his eyes open and his mouth full of dirt. The soil packed deep enough that they had to dig it out with a spoon. And every apple within 10 feet of him had turned black overnight. The sheriff said animals. The doctor said heart failure. The town said little at all, which in Alder Row meant they understood something was wrong but preferred it to remain unspoken, like the damp creeping up cellar walls. Mara didn't say anything either. She stopped taking the orchard path. She stopped opening her window at night. But sounds began anyway. First came the knocking. Not on doors, on walls. Slow, patient taps from inside the house, always behind her, always one room away. When she opened a door, silence waited politely. Her parents blamed pipes cooling, boards settling, old houses remembering how to stand. Then came the breathing. She heard it beneath the floorboards when she lay in bed. A deep inhale, soil heavy, followed by a long exhale that smelled faintly of iron. She pressed her ear to the mattress once and felt vibration, not sound, but something passing through the wood as if the earth itself were trying to speak a language too large for mouths. 3 days after Mr. Hale's funeral, the orchard trees lost all their leaves at once. They did not fall gradually. They released in a single hour, a dry green rain that buried the grass in a skin of dead summer. No wind blew. Mara watched from the school bus, forehead against the glass, and knew something had arrived that autumn had not invited. That night she dreamed of roots. Not trees, roots alone, stretching across endless dark soil-like veins inside a sleeping body. They pulsed slowly, and with each pulse she heard a distant, enormous heartbeat. She walked among them until she found one thicker than a road, split open along its length. Inside it was not wood. Inside it was hollow, and something was breathing through it. She woke with dirt beneath her fingernails and the taste of copper on her tongue. The second death was louder. Mrs. Kettering lived beside the old well near the orchard edge. She had called the sheriff twice about scratching under her porch. He came, found nothing, promised raccoons. The third night, her neighbors heard her shouting. Not screaming, arguing. They said she sounded furious, as if someone had insulted her terribly. They heard her front door open and slam, then footsteps moving across her gravel path toward the well. Then silence. They found her in the morning kneeling at the well's rim, arms buried to the shoulders inside it. She had forced herself in up to the chest and become stuck. Her hands clutched something below they never saw. Her face was calm, smiling, even. The inside of the well was packed solid with fresh dirt. No water remained. After that, the town began to talk. Not publicly, not officially, but in kitchens, in hushed corners of the grocery store. Stories surfaced that had slept beneath generations. Livestock vanishing during certain years, foundations cracking from below, a schoolteacher in 1932 who insisted the ground was growing upward. Someone said the land had been a lake once. Someone else said before that it had been a burial field for people whose names nobody remembered. Mara listened and felt recognition without memory, like hearing a song she had never learned but knew how to hum. She started mapping the town at night on her bedroom wall, marking every strange thing she'd noticed. The orchard, the well, the patch of road that always dipped slightly after rain, the hollow sound under the church steps. The marks formed a circle. At its center stood her house. The breathing grew louder. It came through the vents now, warm and damp, carrying the smell of turned graves. Her parents couldn't hear it. They slept deeply, peacefully, as if the nights were kind. One evening, unable to bear it, Mara pressed her palm to the living room floor. The wood flexed. Just slightly. Like a chest rising. She didn't scream. Some part of her new screaming was for things that might stop. Instead she whispered, "What do you want?" The house answered by settling downward a fraction of an inch. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere far beneath, something vast shifted, patient as continents. She went to the orchard the next day. No one stopped her. The town had begun avoiding that direction instinctively. Even dogs refused to face it, whining at invisible boundaries. The trees stood leafless, bark split in long seams that bled dark sap. The ground felt softer, as if the soil had forgotten firmness. She walked to where Mr. Hale had been found. The dirt there was warm. She knelt and brushed it aside with shaking fingers. 3 inches down, she hit wood, not roots, but boards. A square shape buried deliberately. She dug until her nails tore, until she uncovered a small door no larger than a cellar hatch. It was not old. The metal hinges gleamed new beneath the soil. Someone had buried an entrance. She pulled. The door opened without resistance, exhaling a long breath of cold earth. Darkness waited below, thick and absolute. No ladder, only a slope of packed soil leading downward. From below came the heartbeat she'd heard in dreams. Mara should have run. Instead she climbed in. The tunnel slanted gently into the ground, walls pressed smooth as if something enormous had slid repeatedly through them. Her phone light shook in her hand, illuminating nothing but more passage ahead. The air grew humid, heavy enough to taste. After several minutes the tunnel widened into a cavern. She turned the light outward and understood. It was not a cavern. It was a ribcage. Arches of stone curved overhead, meeting in a spine-like ridge along the ceiling. The floor pulsed faintly, contracting and releasing beneath a thin layer of soil. Veins, real veins, glistening and slow, ran along the walls, disappearing into darkness. At the center lay a hollow deeper than the rest, a pit shaped like a vast open mouth. And from that mouth rose a voice made of many smaller ones layered together. "You hear me?" Mara's knees buckled. "I don't know what you are. I am what remains when forgetting is complete." The ground shifted, forming a shape within the pit, not a body, but the suggestion of one, assembled from roots, stones, and damp earth. No face, yet she felt its attention-like pressure on her eyes. "You built above me," it said. "You named the land yours. You pressed foundations into my back and called it home." Her throat tightened. You're killing people. I am waking. The veins along the walls throbbed harder. They sealed me when their fear outweighed their hunger. Generations passed. They forgot the bargain. But you walked above me every day. You listened. Images poured into her mind. Settlers discovering the breathing ground, feeding it livestock to calm the trembling earth, then eventually burying it alive when they feared what listened back. You need sacrifices, she whispered. I need acknowledgement. Life touching life. The surface has grown loud. Heavy. I am buried beneath your forgetting. The floor rose and fell faster now. The town above creaked faintly through layers of soil. What happens if you fully wake? She asked. The presence seemed to smile without having a mouth. I stand. She understood then. Houses tilting, roads splitting, the town folding inward as the land reclaimed the space occupied by memory's denial. You'll destroy everything. I will exist, it corrected gently. She thought of her parents sleeping peacefully while the ground rehearsed upheaval beneath them. Of school halls, the library, the streets she'd memorized since childhood. What do you want me to do? She asked. Witness. The word echoed like a closing door. The soil behind her slid, sealing the tunnel entrance with effortless finality. The earth began to rise. Above ground, Alder Row felt the first tremor at sunset. Dishes rattled, windows hummed, people stepped outside, confused, searching the horizon for storms that were not there. The orchard sank inward like breath drawn. Then the center of town lifted. Pavement cracked in long deliberate lines radiating from Mara's house. The church steps split apart. The well erupted in a column of dirt. Beneath every building, foundations warped as if resting on the back of something stretching after sleep. Mara stood in the cavern as the ribs expanded around her, towering higher, pushing upward through soil and stone. She screamed once, not in terror but in the helpless protest of witnessing inevitability. Above, the ground opened. Houses tilted toward the sky as the land arched, forming a massive curvature miles wide. Trees slid, roots tearing free. The town did not collapse instantly, it lifted, balanced precariously atop a rising shape. People ran, but direction lost meaning when the earth itself chose orientation. The thing beneath Alder Row stood. Not fully free, too vast for that, but enough that the town became a thin crust on its back. Streets curved along a living slope. The orchard now rested along a shoulder of breathing terrain. From every crack seeped warm mist carrying the scent of old minerals and deep time. The creature inhaled. Half the building slid inward toward its center. Mara felt herself lifted gently as the cavern opened to twilight. She emerged through the orchard floor now curved steeply upward into a hill that hadn't existed hours before. She saw the town below, folded along the contours of an awakening body, and understood the scale. Alder Row had never been built on land. It had been built on a sleeper. The voice spoke inside her thoughts one final time. You remember me. That is enough. The ground settled into a new shape, not destroying entirely, not sparing entirely. Roads broke, structures warped, but pockets remained habitable along stable ridges of its form. A reshaping, not an annihilation. Sirens wailed far away where highways had snapped. Mara knelt on the living earth as it exhaled a centuries-long breath. The monster had not come to end the world. It had come to join it again. And it had won simply by refusing to remain buried. In the following days, people would call it disaster, phenomenon, miracle, curse. Scientists would measure. Governments would fence. But none of them would stop the slow rhythmic breathing beneath their feet. Because once something remembers itself, forgetting cannot bury it twice. Mara stayed where the orchard once stood, feeling the rise and fall under her palms, and knew humanity had lost the argument it never knew it was having. The ground was alive, and it would never sleep beneath them again.